The day my sister's casket was lowered into the ground, my brother-in-law stood on the other side of the grave with his arm around a woman who was not his wife. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than my first car, and the woman, a tall blonde in an expensive dress, kept her hand on his lower back like she was comforting him. It was the most inappropriate and brazen thing I had ever witnessed. My mother, standing beside me, grabbed my arm so hard her nails left little crescent moons in my skin. She whispered, "Don't make a scene. Not today." And I listened. I kept my eyes on the casket. I kept my mouth shut. I let the pastor finish his final prayer, and I let the small crowd of mourners throw their roses onto the polished wood. But I saw him squeeze that woman's hand while they lowered my sister into the earth. And I knew in that very moment that nothing would ever be the same. I didn't confront him then, and I didn't cry. I just watched. I watched as he accepted condolences, shaking hands and nodding solemnly. I watched as he told my father, "We'll get through this together." The lies came so easily to him that I started to wonder if he even knew he was lying anymore. He probably believed his own performance. That's the thing about people like Martin. They get so good at the act that the act becomes their reality. My sister Claire had been gone for only 3 days when Martin called the family meeting. I remember thinking it was quick, indecently quick. He sent a text to our family group chat, a chat that used to be full of pictures of Claire's terrible cooking and her 2 golden retrievers, and said he needed to gather everyone at his house. It was important. We went, of course we all went, my parents, my younger brother Leo, and myself. We showed up like dutiful soldiers because that's what Claire would have wanted. She would have hated conflict. She would have hated any of us questioning Martin. She loved him, you see. She loved him in that way that made you uncomfortable, the kind of love that makes one person a planet and the other person just a moon orbiting around them. When we got to the house Claire had spent years decorating and making cozy, the blonde from the funeral was there. She was in the kitchen, pouring coffee like she belonged there. I felt my mother stiffen beside me, but she didn't say a word. Martin introduced her as Diane, his business partner. He said it so smoothly, so easily, that for a split second I almost believed him. The business partner who wears a silk dress to a funeral. The business partner who knows where the mugs are in his late wife's kitchen. 3 days after the funeral, my brother Leo shifted uncomfortably in his chair. He's a quiet guy, a carpenter, not the type to get involved in drama. He just looked at me with those sad eyes of his. He knew something was wrong too, but he didn't want to believe it. Martin sat us all down in the living room, the same living room where Claire had hosted every Thanksgiving and Christmas, the same living room where she'd wrapped presents and baked cookies and made us all feel welcome. Now it felt cold, sterile. Martin was in his element, standing by the fireplace with the letter in his hand. "I know this is hard," he started, his voice hushed and practiced. "It's the hardest thing I've ever had to do." He held up the letter and I noticed the crease in the middle of it, like someone had folded it, read it, and then refolded it several times. But Claire had her affairs in order. She was always so responsible. I almost laughed at that. Responsible. Claire was the most responsible person I knew. She was the one who balanced my mother's checkbook when my father forgot. She was the one who kept the family glued together. And now Martin was talking about her like she was some kind of efficient secretary. He began to read the letter aloud. It was a will, a handwritten, very simple document. The house, the investment accounts, a small life insurance policy. Everything, absolutely everything, went to Martin. My mother gasped. It wasn't a loud sound, more like a quiet rush of air escaping her lungs. She had always been close to Claire, closer than I was. They talked every day. My mother had spent the last 3 days sobbing uncontrollably, unable to eat, unable to sleep. And here Martin was, reading a will that made her feel like her daughter had forgotten her. "That doesn't make sense," I said. I didn't mean to say it out loud, it just came out. Martin looked up, his eyes wide and innocent. "What doesn't make sense, Nell?" Claire would have left something to Mom. She told me she was going to leave her the jewelry, the family heirlooms. Martin shook his head slowly, a sad little movement. Claire changed her mind now. People do. She wanted me to have everything so I could move on, start a new chapter. He glanced at Diane, who was now standing in the doorway to the kitchen, holding a mug of coffee like it was a prop. The coffee was probably for Martin. I went home that night and I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bed and I replayed every single interaction I had ever had with Claire over the past year. She had been a little distant, a little sad. I chalked it up to stress, to work, to the usual pressures of life. But now I was seeing it differently. I remembered a conversation we had 4 months ago. We were sitting on her back porch, just the two of us. Martin was away on a business trip. She had looked so small, so fragile. "Nell," she had said, "if something ever happens to me, promise me you'll take care of Mom." She hadn't said it in a dramatic way. She said it like she was just thinking out loud. I had dismissed it. "Nothing's going to happen to you," I'd said. "You're the healthiest person I know." She had just smiled, that sad little smile, and nodded. But I knew now. I knew she knew something. She was trying to tell me something. The next morning I started digging. I didn't know what I was looking for. I just knew I had to find something. I drove to Martin's house, which I refused to call anything but the Martin and Diane show, and I knocked on the door. Diane answered. She was wearing yoga pants and a tank top, looking like she was about to go for a run. "Is Martin here?" I asked. "No, he's at the office," she said, her voice light and cheerful. "Can I help you with something?" I told her I needed to pick up something for my mom. It was a lie, but I didn't care. I said Claire had promised my mom a quilt, a hand-stitched quilt she'd been making for years, and I wanted to go look for it. Diane hesitated for a second, then she nodded and opened the door wide. "Of course," she said. "Come on in." As I walked through the house, I noticed a few things. Some small, subtle changes. The family photos on the wall were gone. The ones of Claire and Martin on their honeymoon, their anniversary, their vacations, replaced by generic landscapes. The throw pillows Claire had knitted were in a pile on the floor in the corner, like they had been discarded. And there was a strong floral smell in the air, a perfume that wasn't Claire's. It was Diane's. I went into the office, the room that used to be Claire's little art studio. She had loved painting watercolors, mostly flowers and birds. Now it looked like a war room. Martin's desk was covered in papers, bank statements, real estate documents, things he probably didn't want anyone to see. I hesitated for a moment, my hand hovering over the stack. This was a serious invasion of privacy. But then I thought about Claire. I thought about the closed casket and the doctor saying it was a heart attack. She was only 42. No family history of heart disease. No signs. I started flipping through the papers. Most of it was nonsense, tax forms from years ago, utility bills. But then I found something. A manila folder stuffed under a pile of magazines. It had Claire's name on it. I opened it and my heart stopped. There were medical records. But not just any medical records. These were letters from a doctor, a cardiologist. And the letters were filled with scary words like arrhythmia and palpitations. And then, stapled to the back of one of the letters, was a prescription for a medication called propranolol. I took a picture of everything with my phone. I didn't even think. I just did it. I heard Diane calling from the living room. "Did you find the quilt?" I quickly shoved the folder back where I found it and stood up. "Not yet," I called back. I must be thinking of the wrong room. I walked out of the office and met Diane in the hallway. "Maybe she gave it away," I said, trying to sound casual. She was always giving things away. Diane smiled, but it was a guarded smile. "Probably," she said. "That's the last time I saw her alive, you know? A week before she died. She was so happy now. It's such a tragedy." I nodded, but I wasn't convinced. Why would a happy woman have a secret prescription for a heart condition that no one, not even her own mother, knew about? I went straight to my mom's house. I sat her down at the kitchen table, the same table where Claire and I had eaten countless bowls of cereal, and I showed her the pictures on my phone. "What is this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "It's a heart condition," I said. Claire had a heart condition, and she had a prescription. But I went through her purse after the funeral, Mom. There was no medication in there. No pill bottle. Nothing. My mother's face went pale. "She never told me," she whispered. "She told me everything, Nell. Every little detail. She would have told me if she was scared of her heart." I leaned forward. Unless she didn't know she had a heart condition. My mother looked up at me, her eyes filling with tears. "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe Martin knew she had a heart condition and he never told her. He took her medication away. Or he switched it. Or, I don't know. But it doesn't add up." My mother shook her head. "Martin wouldn't do that. He loved her. I saw them together." I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake her. But I just squeezed her hand. "Mom, he had a girlfriend at her funeral. A business partner who is now living in her house. She's been dead for less than a week." My mom started to cry. She's a proud woman. She hates crying in front of people. But she couldn't hold it back. "What do you want me to do?" she asked. "Do you want me to call the police? They'll think we're crazy. They'll think we're just a grieving family looking for someone to blame." "Maybe we are," I said. "But maybe we're right." I didn't tell anyone else, not yet. I needed proof. Hard, undeniable proof that Martin had something to do with Claire's death. I went to the pharmacy where Claire's prescription had been filled. It was a small family-owned place, not a giant chain. The pharmacist was an older man with kind eyes. I told him I was Claire's sister and that I was trying to piece together her final week, that we were just trying to understand what happened. I asked him if she had any refills left on her heart medication. He looked at his computer and then he nodded. "Yes, she had a refill," he said. "She picked it up about 3 weeks before she passed." 3 weeks before she passed. That meant she had a new bottle of pills in her house. So where were they? I asked him what the medication was called. "Propranolol," he said, "for high blood pressure and arrhythmias." I thanked him and left. I was shaking. I got back in my car and I called the medical examiner's office. It took me an hour to get through, but I finally got someone on the phone. I asked if there had been a toxicology report done on Claire's blood. The woman on the phone was polite but evasive. "Those results typically take several weeks," she said. "They're still pending." I was about to hang up when something else occurred to me. "Do you know if there were any tests done for drug interactions? Specifically, if she had any other medications in her system?" The woman was quiet for a moment. "I can't disclose that information over the phone. You'll have to wait for the official report." But her hesitation was enough. She knew something. I went back to Martin's house. This time I didn't ask. I used my spare key. The key Claire had given me years ago for emergencies. I let myself in and I went straight to the master bedroom, the bedroom that had been Claire and Martin's. I opened her nightstand drawer. It was empty, completely empty. It was like she had never existed in that room. I opened the closet. Her clothes were gone. All of them. Donated probably. Or thrown away. The house was being stripped of her memory. But in the bathroom under the sink behind a pile of old towels I found it. A small brown paper bag. Inside was a pill bottle. Propranolol. It was nearly full. Why would a woman with a heart condition not take her medication? Unless she didn't know she had one. I looked at the label. The prescription was dated for 3 weeks before she died. I remembered what the pharmacist said. She picked it up. So she had the pills. But she didn't take them. Or she stopped taking them. I felt the anger rising in my chest. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about my sister's life. I tucked the pill bottle into my pocket and I left. I didn't even care if anyone saw me. I drove straight to the police station. I talked to a detective, a man named Detective Reeves. He was older, grizzled, with tired eyes. He listened patiently while I told him the whole story. The sudden death, the new girlfriend, the will, the hidden medication. He nodded occasionally and wrote a few things down. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. "Miss Whitaker," he said, "I understand your grief. I really do. But what you're describing, it's circumstantial. A man having a girlfriend doesn't make him a murderer. A woman having a heart condition doesn't mean she was killed." "But she didn't take her medicine," I insisted. "She had a full bottle of pills in her house and she didn't take them. Why?" "Maybe she forgot," he said. "Maybe she was depressed. People in the middle of a divorce or a family crisis, they sometimes stop taking their medications. It happens all the time." I stared at him. "Martin and Claire weren't getting a divorce," I said. "Claire never knew about the other woman. She never knew he was planning to leave her." Detective Reeves sighed. "We can't open an investigation based on a hunch, ma'am. If we get a tox report back that shows some kind of drug interaction, or if the medical examiner finds something suspicious, we'll act on it. But until then..." He shrugged. "You'll have to wait." I left the police station feeling defeated. I felt like the whole world was gaslighting me. And the worst part was I had no idea who to trust anymore. My brother was too busy with his own life. My father was in denial. And my mother, she just wanted to bury her daughter and move on. Everyone was afraid of the truth. Except me. I went back to my apartment and I sat in the dark for a long time. I stared at that pill bottle. It was the only thing I had. A nearly full bottle of heart medication that my sister should have been taking. I opened the bottle and I smelled the pills. There was a faint sweet smell. Too sweet. Propranolol doesn't smell sweet. I shook one out onto my palm. It looked normal. Round white, a little bit chalky. But it smelled like sugar. My heart was pounding. I realized what I was holding. It wasn't propranolol. It was something else. It had been switched out. The label said propranolol, but the pills inside were a different medication. I didn't know what they were, but I knew a medical professional would. I called the medical examiner's office again, but it was after hours. I left a frantic message. I knew I was crossing a line, but I couldn't help it. I needed answers. I called my brother. He picked up on the second ring. "Leo," I said, "I need you to come over. Right now. It's about Claire. I found something." He was there in 20 minutes. I showed him the pill bottle. I told him everything I'd found. The missing medication, the secret doctor visits, the sugar-sweet smell of the pills. "I think Martin killed her," I said. "I think he gave her fake pills so she'd have a heart attack." Leo looked sick. "Nell," he said, his voice shaky. "That's a heavy accusation." "I know," I said. "That's why I need you to help me prove it." We sat there, the two of us, and we made a plan. Leo had a friend, a chemist, who worked at a university lab. We got him to test the pills from the bottle. It took 3 days. 3 agonizing days of waiting, of avoiding Martin's phone calls, of pretending everything was normal. Then the results came back. The pills were an over-the-counter antacid, just calcium carbonate and sugar. Completely useless for a person with a heart condition. It was a death sentence. My sister had been taking placebos while her heart was failing. We went to the police again. This time we had evidence. We had the pill bottle with the mislabeled prescription. We had the testimony of the chemist. We had the medical records showing her condition. Detective Reeves looked at the pills, then he looked at us. His expression had changed. This time he didn't look tired. He looked angry. "We're opening an investigation," he said. The warrant was executed a week later. They stormed Martin's house in the middle of the night. Diane was there. She was screaming, calling her lawyer. Martin was calm. He always had that practice calm. But they found the same pill bottle in his closet. A brown paper bag. The same fake pills. And they found a receipt for an online pharmacy that specialized in custom supplements. The kind of place you could buy blank pills. The kind of place that didn't ask questions. The toxicology report finally came back. It confirmed traces of a sedative in Claire's system. Just a small amount. Just enough to make her sleepy. Enough to slow her breathing. Enough to make a heart attack deadly. Martin had been giving her sleeping pills, crushed up in her tea. He'd made sure she was asleep when her heart stopped. He'd made sure she wouldn't be able to call for help. The media called it a perfect murder. They called him a monster. But to me, he was just the man who broke my sister's heart and then stopped it for good. The trial was a nightmare. We had to relive every terrible moment. Diane testified, trying to save herself. She claimed she had no idea what Martin was doing. She said she just thought he was a cold-hearted businessman. She was a liar too. But the jury saw through her. The prosecutor laid it all out. The financial motive was huge. Martin had taken out a massive life insurance policy on Claire just 6 months before she died. He was the sole beneficiary. He was drowning in debt from his failing business. His business partner was also his mistress. He needed Claire out of the picture. Not divorced. Divorce would have cost him half of everything. Death made it all his. The jury was out for only 4 hours. They came back with a guilty verdict on all counts. First-degree murder. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. I watched them lead him away in handcuffs. His face was ashen blank. The mask had finally dropped. He wasn't the charming husband or the grieving widower anymore. He was a killer. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel relief. I felt a cold, hard emptiness. But it was done. He couldn't hurt anyone else. The hardest part wasn't the trial. It was telling my mother that her son-in-law had murdered her daughter. She broke down. For weeks she couldn't get out of bed. My father had to quit his job to take care of her. But eventually, slowly, the healing began. We started having dinners at my mom's house again. We talked about Claire. We laughed about her, remembering the good times. It was painful, but it was real. And it was honest. The family got stronger. We realized that we had to hold on to each other. Claire had been the heart of our family, and when she died, we thought the heart had stopped forever. But it hadn't. It was just beating in a different place. In all of us. Now, when I pass by the house where Martin and Diane used to live, it's different. New people live there. A young couple with a toddler. They have a little flower garden in the front yard. Claire would have loved that. I smile when I see it. I like to think that Claire's spirit is still there. Watching them, happy to see someone joyful living in her space. As for me, I don't obsess over revenge anymore. I got it. But it didn't fill the hole in my heart. The only thing that fills that hole is remembering my sister. And making sure that her story is never forgotten. She was too trusting, too good, too naive. But she was my sister. And she didn't die in vain. Because of her, there's a killer in prison. Because of her, I learned that sometimes the biggest monsters are the ones who smile the sweetest. And I learned that grief is a long road, but you don't have to walk it alone. You just have to keep walking one step at a time, until the shadows start to fade and you can feel the sun on your face again.